Welcome to the Sleepy Science Channel, and hello. Tonight, we enter a world where science and the unknown coexist together. Like a mirage between what we can measure and what we can only feel, the realm of supernatural phenomena has long lingered on the brink of reason, from the silence of spooky places to the glimmer of invisible lights. The secrets of the invisible world have long called to us in whispers, from energies that hum beneath our feet to minds that gape beyond waking thought. Some claim that these are indications that other worlds are contacting ours. Others see them as mirror images of the wide and tumultuous terrain of the human mind. No matter where the truth lies, it is a tale worth telling gently and deliberately during the quiet times when the barrier between amazement and comprehension is at its thinnest. I encourage you to like, subscribe, or leave a comment below if you appreciate these peaceful excursions. One drowsy soul at a time, it guides others to this place as well. But just take a breath for now. Allow your eyes to swell, and let your mind rest in the unknown. Let's get started. Certain areas of the brain can produce spectral presences when they are stimulated. The temporal parietal junction is a tiny area located deep within the human brain's folds. In scientific investigations where this region is electrically stimulated, participants frequently describe having a strong feeling that someone invisible is standing just behind them, mimicking their every action. Even though no one is there, the presence seems genuine. When disturbed, the brain's amazing capacity to map the body and its environment creates a vision of a different self. In severe situations, many claim to have seen, felt, or even been pressed up against by this phantom person. According to neurologists, it is the mind's attempt to make sense of the body's jumbled spatial impulses. What initially appeared to be supernatural could instead be the brain's own shadow becoming conscious, a brief reflection of the self that is mistaken for a ghostly presence moving in the shadows. It's possible that centuries of witch and demon stories stem from sleep paralysis. Muscles of the body paralyze as the body falls asleep to stop dreaming. Sometimes the mind is trapped in a half-waking state, with consciousness waking up before the paralysis subsides. Many folks see black figures floating in the area and feel a crashing weight on their chest in this weird limbo. The body does not react when they attempt to move or scream. For years, this horrifying encounter was attributed to witches, devils, or eerie guests perched on the sleeping person's chest. It is actually a normal hiccup in the sleep cycle. Imagination becomes a transient haunting during these times as the brain's dream imagery permeates waking consciousness. Those who comprehend it frequently discover that the teachings of dread leave behind not fear, but wonder at the ability of the sleeping mind to conjure up whole worlds that seem completely real. Even when there are no ghosts around, infrasound can give people a haunted feeling. The term infrasound describes sound waves that are below the human hearing range and are frequently created by wind, engines, and storms traveling through tunnels and historic buildings. Even though they are not audible, these vibrations might cause discomfort, lightheadedness, or the faint sense of something close by. There are even frequencies that vibrate as quickly as the human eye, causing brief visual distortions that appear to be moving shadows in the periphery of vision. Researchers have replicated similar effects in experimental settings and shown that even in empty spaces, participants experience shivers, fear, and a sense of being watched. This acoustic signature, where infrasound hums through hallways or basements, is common to many so-called haunted sites. It appears that air and vibration can occasionally account for the invisible. However, the unsettling emotional reaction it evokes is incredibly human, demonstrating how perceptive our senses are to the world's unseen music. The mind can be tricked into perceiving a supernatural presence by magnetic fields. The way the brain interprets space and consciousness can be changed by subtle magnetic oscillations. Subjects wearing helmets that produced fluctuating magnetic fields in several trials reported having strong sensations of being watched or accompanied. Some felt attracted into a presence that seemed bigger than themselves, while others felt invisible figures standing next to them. These sensations felt entirely external and real, even if they were inwardly manufactured. The magnetic fluctuations produced by the Earth itself are influenced by local geology, storm activity, and solar activity. The magnetic environment can change dramatically in caves or old buildings with a lot of iron minerals, which could be a factor in haunting or spiritual contact tales. The brain's ability to convert unseen energy into intense emotion rather than being tricked is remarkable, implying that even the smallest natural forces can reverberate through awareness, like whispers of a different reality. Changes in temperature and air pressure frequently cause an increase in ghost sightings. Changes in the atmosphere might have unexpected psychological impacts. Quick reductions in barometric pressure, particularly before storms, can result in headaches, lightheadedness, and mood or perceptual disturbances. These factors, along with humidity and low light levels, can distort the way shadows and sounds move across space. A shape may morph into something eerie, a door may creak, or a whisper may carry. A lot of well-known haunted houses are drafty, ill-insulated buildings that intensify these feelings. Rapid temperature changes cause breath to become visible, objects to expand and compress, and ancient materials to grow. At these times, the world comes to life with faint sound and movement, and the mind, always searching for significance, combines them into a narrative. Maybe that's why stormy weather has long been a favorite setting for ghost stories. When the world itself appears to be breathing and sighing with life that is invisible to us. Low-frequency vibrations may be the cause of the eerie atmosphere in historic structures. Low vibrations from the wind, footsteps, or subterranean water frequently cause ancient castles, cathedrals, and tunnels to hum. Although these frequencies are too deep to hear well, they can be perceived as a slight tremor in the bones or as pressure in the chest. These feelings arouse anxiety and instinctive vigilance, as if something invisible is approaching. The impression is enhanced by long hallways and stone walls, which produce resonant tones that shift as one moves. In locations traditionally believed to be haunted, researchers have analyzed these vibrations and discovered relationships between their intensity and accounts of presence or terror. The brain fills in the voids, creating a ghostly echo, a whisper, or a watcher when the air trembles just below perception. The structure itself turns into an instrument that plays on our nerves, reminding us that sound is felt deeply within our bodies in addition to being heard. As a survival mechanism, the human brain perceives faces in arbitrary patterns. Face recognition was essential for survival long before civilization. Even in low light, the mind has evolved to recognize faces, lips, and eyes. Even now, whether we see clouds, tree bark, or shadows, that old response still activates. Lifeless objects can appear lively and conscious due to a phenomenon known as pareidolia. A patch of texture could turn into a watching face in the flickering light of a candle or in the changing darkness. It is almost impossible to unsee the pattern once it has been noticed. This similar technique, in which the brain imposes familiar shapes on chaos, is the source of many ghost photos and religious visions. It is far from being stupid, Rather, it is evidence of the mind's amazing pattern-seeking urge, which blurs the fine distinction between perception and belief that has plagued people since the beginning of awareness. This impulse transforms randomness into meaning and imagination into presence. The peripheral vision system of the brain may be connected to shadow individuals. Human vision gets less acute and more sensitive to motion at the borders of sight. Dark shapes may momentarily emerge in low light as the brain tries to make sense of hazy information. Stress, exhaustion, and mild variations in blood pressure can all intensify this effect. Those who have experienced it frequently talk about ephemeral shapes or beings that dart away when immediately observed. Some people claim that these shapes keep coming back when they're sick or exhausted. According to scientists, they are the result of the brain's predictive system, which is always speculating about what might happen next. These guesses may become more ominous as uncertainty increases. However, the emotional impact is still indisputable. The chill of seeing something that shouldn't be there is still felt even after comprehending the mechanism, which serves as a reminder of how brittle the line separating reality from fantasy is. Some people's temporal lobes make them more susceptible to paranormal experiences. Memory, emotion, and sensory integration are all significantly influenced by the brain's temporal lobes. These areas are abnormally sensitive in some people, which increases the likelihood that they will have intense feelings of presence, awe, or fear while under stress or when they are tired. This increased activity can blur the distinction between what is seen and what is imagined by fusing internal thought with exterior perception. This same neurological characteristic may have been present in artists, mystics, and visionaries throughout history, allowing them to perceive everyday stimuli with unusual intensity. According to some neurologists, haunting experiences and religious revelation may both be explained by temporal lobe sensitivity. Instead of discounting such experiences, it implies that they might originate from the deepest creative parts of the brain, where meaning, emotion, and memory all come together. The supernatural could then be the mind's glimpse of its own limitless possibilities rather than an outside force. Even in the absence of any sickness, hallucinations can happen in complete darkness. The brain starts producing its own sensations when it isn't exposed to light or other senses. After just a few minutes, people begin to perceive changing lights, faces, or landscapes in completely dark rooms or tunnels. These sights are waking hallucinations brought on by a restless visual brain looking for information. They are not dreams. They can develop complicated colors, movements, and even sounds over time. Monks and early explorers who spent a lot of time in the dark frequently talked about encountering ghosts or otherworldly beings. This type of vision is common and universal, according to recent research. The mind fills the whole with its own creations because it cannot stand to be left in silence. It is as though the darkness itself has started to dream through the person who waits inside that quiet theater, where perception and imagination combine to transform emptiness into presence and solitude into revelation. A lot of UFO encounters occur in conjunction with covert aircraft experiments. Numerous unexplained lights were seen silently floating over the night sky during the 20th century. Many of these encounters happened close to restricted testing sites where new aircraft were being constructed, according to declassified documents that were made public in later decades. Both the US and the USSR tested stealth prototypes, high-altitude aircraft, and reconnaissance balloons during the Cold War that were decades ahead of the general public's awareness. Those who witnessed these craft were astounded by their peculiar shapes, motions, and speeds. In the absence of context, they appeared premature. UFO claims continue to climb substantially in the surrounding areas when governments perform orbital or atmospheric research. The edge of innovation that is perceived before its time is frequently what appears magical. However, the allure endures, serving as a reminder that human technology can seem as fantastic and bizarre as anything we used to think originated in space. Centuries of stories of glowing orbs could be explained by ball lightning. Eerie balls of light have been seen floating through the air, into houses, and disappearing in silence, according to witnesses throughout history. Ball lightning, a rare electrical phenomenon, may be the cause of these glowing orbs, which were formerly believed to be ghosts or wandering souls. Using vaporized silicon and microwaves, scientists have replicated comparable results in lab settings, creating luminous spheres that float for a few seconds before dissolving. They are most frequently formed during storms when lightning strikes organic debris or soil. Their light might appear sentient, changing course or pausing mid-air, despite their random nature. Such conduct felt sentient, almost alive, before the development of modern thinking. Ball lightning is still a mystery since no single explanation can account for every sighting. However, it demonstrates how natural forces can assume shapes that were formerly exclusive to the supernatural, bridging the gap between physics and folklore. Some memories of alien abduction resemble sleep paralysis symptoms. The memories of many people who remember being carried aboard strange craft are very similar. The immobility, the pressure on the chest, the blinding lights, and the feeling of something invisible close by. According to neurologists, these facts are quite similar to sleep paralysis events, in which the body is still in a dream state but the mind awakens. Imaginary visitors can appear completely genuine at that vulnerable moment when dream imagery projects forth into the real world. Research indicates that people's perceptions are influenced by cultural expectations. In other periods, the identical experience could have resulted in visions of fairies or demons rather than aliens. The occurrence speaks not of dishonesty, but of the half-waking brain's ability to combine reality, imagination, and anxiety into a cosmically personal meeting. In this twilight, the mind becomes a stage and a storyteller. There are optical illusions in the night sky that resemble moving lights. The atmosphere itself becomes a lens on clear nights. Starlight is bent and refracted by shifting air layers, causing light spots to shimmer, drift, or even seem to dance across the horizon. High-altitude moisture or ice crystals have the ability to divide and scatter light into brilliant patterns that appear to move purposefully. The ability of temperature inversions to produce mirages that raise lights from far-off ships or cities into the sky has long been recognized by pilots and sailors. Seeking order in motion, the human eye interprets these variations as intentional flying. Such illusions sparked innumerable accounts of enigmatic visitors prior to the widespread use of satellites and airplanes. The globe might still seem to bob and whirl like a hovering ship as it rises through tumultuous air. Simple starlight is transformed into a ballet of amazement and deceit as what we see above us is filtered by the living air itself. In human sight, cosmic rays can sometimes produce bursts of light. Streams of high-energy particles travel through space at almost the speed of light, well beyond the atmosphere of our planet. Even in total darkness, these cosmic rays can cause tiny bursts of luminescence in the retina that appear to the observer as flashes of light. For a long time, astronauts in space stations have described seeing these enigmatic sparkles, sometimes while their eyes were closed. The effect is less common on Earth since most radiation is shielded by our atmosphere, although sensitive detectors and even high-altitude flight passengers have picked up such phony bursts. Unaware of the occurrence, early space visitors referred to them as unearthly signals or living lights. The reality is just as remarkable. We catch a fleeting glimpse of the unseen energy that envelops and ties together every star in the vast cosmos thanks to subatomic messengers from deep space traveling straight through the body. During the battle, pilots once reported Foo Fighters, most likely due to a plasma effect. Both Allied and Axis pilots reported seeing light orbs following their aircraft during night missions during World War II. Known as FU fighters, these odd lights appeared to dance with airplanes, changing color and speed before disappearing. They were thought to be extraterrestrial visitors or covert enemy weaponry at the time. These days, experts believe they were atmospheric plasma created by engine heat slicing through moisture or electrical charges from turbulent air. When plasma is led by fluctuating electric fields, it can resemble floating balls of light that move on their own. The tense, fearful, and technologically advanced skies of the war were a breeding ground for misunderstandings. The reports are still eerily poetic, nevertheless. Even battle can inspire the sky to produce beauty and mystery that defy basic power, as demonstrated by the appearance of luminous companions during humanity's worst moments. Justification. Some meteors emit light so peculiar that it appears to be alive as they burst in the atmosphere. A big meteor glows brighter than any star when it enters Earth's atmosphere because of the friction with the air, which warms it to amazing temperatures. The meteor can occasionally explode violently due to extreme pressure, releasing shards and emitting pulsing light that flickers like a heartbeat. These bolides can produce shock waves that shake windows and light up the night for miles. Such explosions are unearthly, as the Chelyabinsk occurrence in Russia showed, with light trails and sounds like thunder from the sky. They were frequently viewed as divine omens or celestial entities by ancient observers. Even with our current understanding of the science, it nevertheless seems alive to watch a meteor break apart, as if the sky were actually breathing fire. The universe serves as a reminder that natural forces are capable of exhibiting a power so bizarre that it defies understanding and turns into sheer wonder. Military-grade sensors are now being used to study unknown airborne phenomena. Governments have started making public film taken by sophisticated radar and infrared systems in recent years, which depicts things moving in ways that are difficult to categorize. The acceleration and rotation of these unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAP, appear to be beyond the capabilities of current technology. Researchers now treat the subject with scientific prudence, gathering data from several instruments at once to rule out sensor mistakes rather than writing them off as fiction. Commonplace explanations like atmospheric influences, optical illusions, or classified aircraft may still be used in many circumstances. However, the inquiry itself represents a change in perspective. What was once written off as superstition is today regarded as a matter of debate. More than fear, humanity's curiosity is reflected in the endeavor to explore the unknown, demonstrating that humans still gaze up at the sky and wonder who or what might be watching back, despite the existence of satellites and algorithms. Because of atmospheric refraction, Venus may appear to the human eye to be a hovering craft. Second only to the Moon, Venus is one of the brightest natural objects in the sky, and its brightness frequently surprises onlookers. Its constant light may seem to flicker, change, or dart over the horizon when seen through layers of moving air. Venus has been low in the sky for decades, giving the appearance of movement or closeness, which has led to innumerable UFO encounters. At night, the planet's gradual ascent and fall can resemble a hovering light pursuing a visitor. Its apparent motion appears controlled and purposeful to the unaided eye. Once comprehended, the illusion shows how the atmosphere reshapes the skies into shapes that arouse the imagination, acting as both an artist and a trickster. Venus, named after the goddess of beauty, never fails to captivate us. Earthly air changed its constant luminosity into a wonder of living light. Temperature layers in the sky can produce radar ghosts. Echoes can occasionally be produced where there is nothing solid by radar systems that use radio waves bounced through the atmosphere to detect objects. Phantom targets that seem to move across screens are produced when warm and cool air layers bend the waves back toward the ground. As radar operators observed forms that appeared to disappear without a trace, these ghosts caused bewilderment and even anxiety in the early days of radar study. Machines can be tricked by the same atmospheric circumstances that produce visual illusions. In an attempt to combine technology and perception in a common hallucination, pilots pursuing similar illusions occasionally reported seeing visual lights that reflected the bogus radar data. The concept of invisible layers of air creating apparitions in both equipment and our imaginations, despite our current understanding of the physics, serves as a reminder that even science has its phantoms dancing in the skies. Architecture that is hidden. The frequency at which haunted noises can reverberate is the same as that of the anatomy of human eyes. The human body can be subtly affected by low-frequency vibrations between 18 and 19 Hz, particularly the eyes. Visual distortions such as faint shadows or flashes in peripheral vision might result from air or machinery vibrating at this velocity. When employees in a laboratory claimed a ghostly presence, engineers found that the exact tone was coming from a ventilation fan. The haunting disappeared as the fan was switched off. The body experiences pressure and uneasiness from the frequency, which is too low to be heard consciously. Similar resonances are frequently produced by cathedrals, tunnels, and historic structures, particularly when wind passes through constricted areas. Many ghost stories may have been sparked by such vibrations long before science was able to measure them. It is amazing that even something as basic as sound can evoke old feelings of surprise and dread when it is slowed down past the point of hearing. Areas of airflow turbulence frequently correspond with cold regions in haunted houses. Reports of abrupt chills or temperature decreases that appear to be localized are common among visitors to haunted locations. These regions typically correlate to drafts, vents, or convection currents caused by uneven heating, according to research conducted by investigators utilizing thermal cameras and airflow sensors. Gaps around windows and floorboards in older buildings can cause cool air to flow through spaces in unanticipated ways, giving the impression that something invisible is moving through the space. This effect is amplified at high humidity levels, creating the impression of movement over the skin. Pattern sensitive, the mind perceives the physical as supernatural. The mechanics can be explained by science, but the experience itself remains incredibly enigmatic. The silent excitement of being in a dimly lit hallway where the air abruptly turns chilly, as if the structure itself is whispering secrets older than its walls, cannot be taken away by comprehension. Radio wave fragments, not ghosts, can be heard in many EVP recordings. Unusual voices or sounds that are supposed to show up on recordings when no one is speaking are known as electronic voice phenomena, or EVP. They are frequently interpreted by enthusiasts as communications from the deceased. Nevertheless, studies have revealed that a large number of these recordings include random bits of radio broadcasts or background noise that resemble speech patterns. Remote transmissions that are reflected off metal surfaces or carried by the weather can be picked up by sensitive microphones and wires that are not properly insulated. In the past, whole families thought their home was haunted by high amounts of carbon monoxide. Before the invention of modern ventilation, carbon monoxide occasionally spilled into homes via gas lamps and malfunctioning furnaces in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Headaches, lightheadedness, hallucinations, and a sense of fear were all brought on by the invisible gas. Individuals would perceive a sinister presence prowling their homes, hear whispers, or see figures. Investigators came to the conclusion that the house was haunted, since entire households reported seeing the same sights. Doctors didn't link the symptoms to carbon monoxide poisoning until much later. The hauntings ceased entirely after the leaks were fixed. The finding marked a paradigm shift in our knowledge of how our surroundings can influence the paranormal tales we tell. It acts as a silent reminder that there is a narrow line separating danger from haunting, and that sometimes the ghosts that scare us are actually from the air we breathe rather than from another realm. Hallucinogenic substances can be released by the stench of decaying wood. In small or poorly ventilated areas, some molds and fungi that grow on decaying wood emit compounds that resemble moderate hallucinogens in structure. These spores can induce vertigo, clouded vision, or a sense of unreality when inhaled. Researchers looking into haunted homes have discovered that a lot of alleged apparitions have happened in attics or wet basements that are full of this type of growth. These natural poisons can cause fainting or the perception of peripheral movement. Mold exposure was common in past eras when cleanliness was poor and was frequently confused with witchcraft or possession. Air quality can alter perception in ways that are frightening or spiritual, according to modern science. Long connected to death and ghosts, the smell of decay has the power to physically change consciousness, creating the sensations and illusions that have sparked many ghost stories over the centuries. The way the brain perceives movement and shadows is altered by dim lighting. Human vision interprets space based on contrast and clarity. To make motionless objects appear to shift or sway in low light, the brain amplifies motion and makes educated guesses about outlines. The slight flickering of gas lamps, candlelight, or moonlight animates the margins of perception. These flickers turn into figures moving in the dark when accompanied by exhaustion or dread. According to experiments, people who are exposed to dim, changing light frequently see shapes that disappear as the brightness rises. Since light dances just beyond certainty at twilight or in candle-lit settings, this phenomenon explains why many ghost sightings take place at these times. The phenomenon is beautiful because it shows how perception itself is infused with creativity. This prehistoric survival technique makes it appear as though someone is watching or following you. It is a stage that psychologists refer to as hypervigilance, during which imagined presences are used to fill in sensory gaps. In studies, participants frequently claim to feel someone following them in poorly lit hallways, even when no one is there. The sensation of air on the neck or the ability to hear whispering might intensify the experience. Despite having a biological foundation, it feels incredibly otherworldly. By presuming the invisible was conscious and living, our ancestors were able to survive. Whether it's ghosts, spirits, or recollections of the innumerable eyes that once gazed from the wilderness beyond the firelight, that instinct persists and turns ordinary darkness into a stage. Abrupt decreases in barometric pressure can change our perception of terror. The body detects rapid changes in the atmosphere before the conscious mind does. Reduced air pressure can cause sinus tightness, moderate headaches, and blood flow changes that have a subtle emotional impact. People sometimes talk about feeling nervous or apprehensive right before a storm hits. This feeling intensifies in confined areas, producing a sense of weight that permeates the air. Such environmental changes often occur at haunted locales, giving them an aura of invisible energy. These pressure variations have been shown to prime the imagination by increasing attentiveness and fear reactions, according to researchers who study weather and emotion. Because nature itself changes the chemistry of vision, a stormy night then provides the ideal setting for eerie tales. We are reminded that the line separating atmosphere and emotion is as thin as mist by the sky's invisible pulse, which awakens something old within us. Certain haunted houses are located close to seismic faults that cause minute earthquakes. Human perception can nevertheless be influenced by subtle ground vibrations that are much below the level of conscious detection. People frequently report unusual sensations, disorientation, or the idea that rooms are shifting in areas where little tremors occur on a regular basis. The sensation of an invisible force at work can be strengthened by these vibrations, which can make lights flicker or items rattle. Many of the well-known haunted locations that researchers have documented are situated immediately over fault lines or other unstable geological formations. The inherent restlessness of the Earth may give constructions a dynamic vitality that moves light, sound, and air in surprising ways. Because they saw these locations as holy intersections of realms, ancient cultures frequently erected temples there. Actually, they might have sensed the Earth's deep voice, a reminder that our globe is constantly moving, calling the same secrets that once evoked wonder and devotion through stone. Hair can rise and feel like an invisible touch when exposed to static electricity. Tiny sparks can move undetectably from the skin to adjacent items when dry air accumulates charge on the body or surfaces. Even when nothing is apparent, this creates the definite feeling of being touched or brushed. Static can also produce subtle blue light flashes or small fabric movement in dark spaces, which heightens the appearance of a ghostly hand. Using electromagnetic detectors, investigators have discovered that aged wiring, carpets, and dry conditions cause static to build up in many haunting locations. The electric charge causes tingling sensations over the arms and scalp by interacting with the body's own field. Such experiences felt profoundly supernatural long before the physics of electricity was fully known. As a reminder that even the invisible physics of air can arouse our imagination, what we see as a spirit's touch may actually be the tiniest spark of nature itself. The brain often floods itself with serotonin at the start of near-death experiences. The nervous system releases a protective cascade that calms panic and stabilizes perception at the brink of death. The balancing influence of serotonin, which rises significantly among these signals, can heighten color, sharpen imagery, and create a profound sensation of peace. Despite failing oxygen and a receding heartbeat, people have described tranquility, presence, and significance in tales that have been documented by researchers and clinicians. To prevent ideas from disintegrating into panic, this chemical aids in maintaining coordination across networks. Mystery is not eliminated by the effect. It's framed. Many who come back from this threshold report that the experience reduces worry, shifts priorities, and increases appreciation for everyday experiences. The result is useful and compassionate, regardless of whether the surge is just the brain's method of making the journey easier or something more. The mind frequently chooses order over chaos in those last moments, combining light and memories into a farewell that is both personal and vast. The tunnel of light can represent the image of the brain collapsing outward from the center. Cells at the periphery of the field of vision fail first as blood flow to the visual system declines, although central vision stays somewhat more active. As a result, a bright center that appears to pull awareness forward is surrounded by a narrower ring of darkness. When circulation moves away from the head, pilots who experience extreme acceleration report a similar constriction. The similar geometry is also seen in patients receiving lower oxygen levels during controlled tests. Because the brain interprets decreasing illumination as forward motion, it is possible to feel as though one is moving along a bright hallway even when the body is motionless. None of this lessens the image's impact. The journey from darkness to light is a human archetype as well as a biological pattern. Meaning describes the voyage, whereas physiology describes the map. The mind concentrates on the brightest point available, a last orientation toward what feels like home, while hope and memory concentrate in that converging circle. Many claim to have met departed family members when oxygen deprived. Memory networks emit vivid personal images with exceptional quickness when oxygen levels fall. Faces come to life with remarkable clarity. Warm gestures that have long been absent resurface, and familiar voices seem to be there. According to neurological models, limbic and temporal activation combines emotion with previously stored images to produce experiences that seem internal but are actually external. People who experienced it frequently maintain that the meetings were sincere and helpful. The pattern recurs in hospitals, on mountains, and in isolated locations far from assistance, spanning cultures and generations. Although the environment may change, the business never changes. The most needed or adored individuals. The effect is quantifiable, regardless of the mechanism. Death-related anxiety subsides. Grief can occasionally dissolve its tightest knots while reconciliation deepens. Consciousness appears to prioritize relationships at the edge. As though love were the last language it chooses to use, connection occupies the last theater of the mind. The sensation of leaving the body is seen by some experts as a temporal parietal malfunction. Touch, balance, sight, and internal cues are all actively woven together to create the sensation of being inside a body. These streams merge to form a persistent spatial representation of the self at the intersection of temporal and parietal regions. The brain can resolve the conflict by producing a perspective above or next to the body when timing or coherence falters. A viewpoint that, by utilizing the same sensory resources, feels genuine. Floating experiences have been created by regulated electrical and magnetic stimulation, observing from a corner of the room and the feeling that one is watching medical teams in action. Sometimes, without any tools, meditation, migraines, and trauma all lead to the same thing. A dismissal is not implied by the discovery. It displays adaptability. Under stress, self-location may change and then return. As if consciousness had discovered that it could release its anchor without losing itself, the memory of that broader perspective endures as calm for many. The life review phenomenon is described by cultures all across the world. Actions and effects emerge together with astonishing clarity in this panoramic unfolding, as described in ancient scriptures and contemporary interviews. People claim that everything from early childhood to the present suddenly increases, accompanied by an awareness of how other people felt about each decision. According to one theory, time frames can overlap because the bottlenecks that typically filter recall are removed by widespread activation of memory and empathy networks. Another contends that moral salience is heightened to the point where the perspective is organized by meaning rather than chronology. The tone is the most noticeable aspect. Like a ledger that balances without being cruel, the evaluation is frequently characterized as precise yet caring. Many are then inspired to live more patiently, honestly, and kindly. It demonstrates that as time runs out, Consciousness looks for coherence and does so with a heart, regardless of whether this is neuronal bookkeeping or a ritual at a threshold outside of biology. After being resuscitated after clinical death, people usually stop being afraid of dying. Studies of those who have survived cardiac arrest show a steady trend toward acceptance, thankfulness, and relationship focus. Some people think of glowing seams. Others only recall silence. Small joys become dazzling, and ordinary anxieties lose their hold on both groups. A number of potential drivers are described by psychologists. Priorities are reframed by intimate touch with mortality. A persistent calm is imprinted by the neurochemical states during the crisis. The mere miracle of reviving becomes a routine rather than a recollection. The shift is practical no matter how it occurs. People fix friendships, simplify responsibilities, and view time as a gift rather than a chore. The experience doesn't make sadness go away. It makes sadness a part of a larger field of meaning by expanding the container in which it is contained. Death appears more like a return to rest in that broader field than a plunge into darkness. Mild electrical pulses can create deeply mystical experiences in the brain. Without the use of drugs or suggestion, specific magnetic and electrical patterns applied to specific temporal regions can inspire warmth, unity, and presence. Volunteers report a dissolution of regular boundaries, clarity, and timelessness that are indistinguishable from descriptions found in contemplative traditions. According to the findings, the human brain's architecture is inherent and just awaits the right circumstances to bring disparate networks into harmony. This doesn't make people less devoted to machines. It demonstrates that commitment is possible for the machinery. Similar states occur in intense sadness, music, ritual, and wilderness alone, indicating that various paths converge on common brain harmonies. The useful lesson is that one may cultivate meaning. Perception of breath and care is influenced by breath, rhythm, attention, and mild stimulation. The most dependable indication that an experience has had a genuine impact on the individual carrying it forward is compassion, which can blossom from what starts as structured electricity. Similar brain states to near-death experiences can be triggered by meditation. Consistent practice lowers respiration, stabilizes cardiac rhythms, and synchronizes disparate neuronal assemblies. Experienced practitioners' imaging reveals more coherence in networks related to vision and emotion, and less activity in areas that reinforce a limited sense of self. Reportedly, radiant calm emerges with a broader presence and independence from time constraints at monasteries and retreats. Transcendence is not limited to times of crisis, as seen by the overlap with stories from the edge of life. It is an attentional ability that can be shared, honed, and learned. This is a significant and useful discovery. It makes serenity accessible through everyday life, not as a means of escape, but as a means of steadily navigating job, family, and community. It seems that the brain contains both serenity and survival maps, and practice teaches it which to use. Some people think that when heart activity stops, consciousness may remain for a short time. Recordings of cardiac arrest can occasionally show structured brain activity for a brief period of time following the loss of the pulse. The patterns are similar to rhythms found in awareness and memory. Occasionally, people who are subsequently revived describe particular specifics from the scene, including sounds and sequences that personnel can confirm. Remaining processing and final coordinated firing bursts that weave perception into a cohesive instant before fading are examples of explanations. Immortality is not claimed by the possibility. It questions the notion that consciousness ceases in a single moment. It suggests a gradient, a twilight when systems shut down, but the mind may continue to accumulate experience. This window is significant, despite its briefness. It encourages humility in assertions, tenderness in care, and the idea that endings can hold a surprisingly large quantity of life. Virtual reality experiments can create the illusion of floating above the body. After aligning a visual avatar and giving the participant synchronized touches, researchers move the camera view a short distance away. In a few seconds, perspective rises as though attention had left its typical frame and ownership moves toward the visible body. Measurements reveal that when their actual hands stay elsewhere, people reach for the avatar as though it were their actual position. The demonstration shows that selfhood is not dependent on a permanent location, but rather on the agreement of senses. The map will redraw itself if you break the agreement. This controlled mirror provides both explanation and validation for those who have experienced spontaneous departures during illness or meditation. It is not a sign of weakness. It's adaptability. The first sparks can occasionally come from drafts or unsecured fittings. Sometimes the fuel comes from human anxiety. The disruptions frequently go away without rituals or conflict when families deal with the stress via relaxation, communication, and support. Because it externalizes inner weather, the story is nevertheless captivating. Lights flutter like grief, taps click like worry, and doors slam like wrath. It's also human in its resolve. The return of calm brings with it a simple silence that seems to be a godsend. A house becomes a barometer of the hearts that reside within it in this frame. Random number generators may move slightly with intense effort, according to some psychokinesis research. In several experiments, devices that generate sequences meant to be completely random have displayed minute variations when individuals focus on biasing results. Even though the effects are minimal, the durability over several sessions keeps the research going. Selection flaws and subtle artifacts are cited by skeptics. Proponents demand improved procedures, larger datasets, and open pre-registration. Regardless of the outcome, the work raises a more profound query. Is consciousness merely an observer? Can it influence probability in ways that haven't been modeled yet? Reports of effort softening into relaxed attention, a state that is described as clear, steady, and connected, are the most fascinating. The research leaves a gift even if the discrepancies disappear under more stringent conditions. In order for curiosity and caution to coexist without losing their footing, it serves as a reminder to science to be modest and to seekers to be diligent. Without an outside force, no physical item has ever been demonstrated to move. Alleged telekinesis has failed to produce motion that withstands stringent controls in decades of meticulous testing. Investigators typically find vibration, airflow, magnetism, static, misconception, or accidental effect when things slide or jump. The durable laws of momentum, which enable spacecraft to navigate and bridges to stand, are upheld by this conclusion. But because it suggests a reality about agency, the fantasy of mind over matter endures. While intention may not be able to move a cup across a table, it may move a person across a life by influencing decisions that impact entire worlds. Science gently draws the line and allows amazement to thrive where it is most abundant in shared meaning, creativity, and compassion. Thought does move matter through hands and tools in those domains, and communities obtain a wonder that can be astonished without breaking any norms. Things can rattle on their own due to microseismic vibrations. Ocean waves, distant storms, and distant earthquakes all contribute to the planet's continuous hum. These weak signals can be amplified by buildings, causing windows to click, shelves to quiver, and fixtures to sway in otherwise still spaces. Sensitive equipment proves a planetary rather than paranormal source by revealing repetitive patterns that correspond to known micro-citizens. These small movements take center stage and gain a sense of purpose in the stillness of the night when other sounds fade. The astonishment is not diminished by the explanation. A creak can represent the wind's journey across a sea and through stone. Joists and nails can transfer the sound of a knock into the echo of the weather. The gentle beat of the soil is like a kind of melody that permeates the buildings that protect us. Power fluctuations can occasionally cause electrical appliances to turn on their own. Radios that murmur in empty rooms and televisions that flicker awake are frequently triggered by adjacent broadcast interference, voltage spikes, and capacitor discharge. Storms can force equipment into states that appear to be intentional, and aged wire can drop below thresholds that reset circuitry. Broadcast snippets that resemble voices speaking directly to the listener can be captured by speakers. Because it occurs in a private setting and coincides with attention, the experience feels intimate. The incident is returned to the broader system to which it belongs through understanding. Through circuits that mimic landscape, electricity flows, pools, and gusts like weather. The shiver persists even after realizing this. It reinterprets it as reverence for an unseen sea of motion that occasionally spills over the edge and fills our houses with power and signals. Small items can levitate due to sound waves, giving the appearance of telekinesis. Standing waves with pockets of reduced pressure created by arrays of ultrasonic emitters can catch tiny droplets, beads, and pieces of foam against gravity. Operators carefully guide the trapped items through the air by varying phase and frequency, creating spirals and arcs that appear to respond to thinking. A principle that recurs throughout nature is shown by the demonstration. Vibration gives rise to form. The air is carved with patterns by musical strings. When they sing, powder-dusted plates create complex forms. The same reasoning is used to move fragile materials without touching them in lab settings for study and manufacture. The sight appears magical to an audience that is not aware of the machinery. The truth is as lovely. Sound turns into a soft lever, and pressure into a hand that raises the world one grain at a time. Air convection was mistaken for moving draperies by early ghost seekers. Rooms were heated and illuminated by flames prior to central heating. Slow rivers of rising air above fires and candles sank along frigid walls and drifted across ceilings, causing latches to release and fabric to tug. With lamps and notebooks in hand, investigators looking for indications of presence entered and discovered movement that appeared to respond to their approach. Sweaters, carpets, and a few steps in socks can be used to replicate many of the old-fashioned accounts of little objects shifting in motionless rooms. The sight retains its sense of awe despite the phenomenon. It refocuses awe on the unsung forces that permeate everyday existence. Even silence hums, and the universe is animated in little by the same energy that cracks in thunderheads as it moves softly down cuffs and pages. People overestimate their effect during coincidences, according to lab studies. The mind weaves a narrative with intention at its core when desire and result occur close to one another. Random process experiments reveal that individuals forget those alignments that do not support their wishes while remembering those that do, constructing an image of control from fragmented memory. This is not stupidity. The brain's ability to recognize patterns in noise is one of its features, a gift that inspired creativity and once helped with survival. Poetry and science are produced by the same urge that creates superstition. Both make an effort to give meaning to happenings. We restrict the cost while keeping the gift after recognizing the prejudice. Wonder endures with candor about chance, and coincidence turns into a source of interest rather than evidence of authority. When psychological strain in a home subsides, poltergeist incidents frequently stop. Long-term observations show that when families deal with loss, anger, or uncertainty, the costs of disturbances tend to diminish. Hard talks are followed by better sleep. Little sounds lose their frightening quality as people stop listening for threats. Realistic solutions are beneficial. Checking wiring, securing shelving, and preventing ceiling drafts. Inside the house, there is a more profound shift. Charged rooms start to feel normal, not because mystery has been eradicated, but rather because fear has been subdued. According to this perspective, a haunting turns into a mirror that displays stress as sound and movement. It is not spectacle that is the cure, it's compassion. The house becomes calm when individuals listen to each other and share the load. The calm, which comes after the storm has finally passed, feels earned and fortunate. Animal behavior is frequently confused with supernatural indications. Animals have served as our messengers, omens, and early warning systems for thousands of years. They are able to notice sounds, odors, and vibrations much earlier than humans due to their enhanced sensitivities. A cat gazing intently into the dark, a swarm of birds soaring at dusk, or a dog growling suddenly at an empty doorway might all seem unearthly. Almost always, the conduct shows a sensitivity to subtleties that are below our threshold of perception. Some animals detect faint tremors from passing cars, smell trace fumes from decomposing matter, or hear ultrasonic frequencies from electrical gadgets. Nevertheless, there is an odd poetry to the uneasiness these moments evoke. Something ancient within us is touched by the animal's sensitivity. The instinct that reading cues from the living world was once essential to existence. Because intuition and superstition developed from the same germ, we still get a chill even when we understand the science. The desire to comprehend what is observed when we are blind. Cats are able to pick up on minute vibrations that people miss. The cilia, or whiskers, of a cat are beautiful instruments. Each one has its roots deep within a network of nerve endings that detect variations in surface vibration and air movement. Because of their sensitivity, cats can track invisible insects, travel in the dark, and hear footsteps far away before people can. Cats frequently react to subtle indications like fluctuating air pressure or low rumbling vibrations when they suddenly tighten up or stare into a blank space. Because the animal's response seemed too exact to be random, it was interpreted in folklore as an indication of spirits or forces that are invisible to humans. According to modern science, cats just live in a more tactile world than humans. But the fascination never goes away. Nature has given certain creatures a closer grasp on the pulse of the invisible, and seeing a cat stop and listen to silence serves as a reminder that reality contains layers we rarely perceive. Dogs can occasionally bark at electrical hum frequencies that are inaudible to humans. The hearing of domestic dogs extends well beyond human perception's upper and bottom bounds. The deep vibrations of electrical transformers, subterranean cables, and appliances are among the sounds they can pick up between about 15 and 60,000 hertz. A dog may be reacting to low-frequency hums produced by alternating current or to minute vibrations in wiring when it abruptly barks at an empty corner or whines close to a wall. Because the animal responds to something we cannot confirm, the noise might have emotional significance. Such a response, as if the dog were protecting its owner from an invisible guest, was considered proof of invisible company in previous centuries. Acoustic measurements now frequently reveal a logical reason. The moment is still eerie, though. An old-fashioned perception that the environment hums with energies our bodies can no longer hear is reawakened by a companion animal staring into the dark and raising an alert. Uncomfortable infrasound from ocean waves can travel for miles. Strong waves and storms create profound vibrations below the threshold of hearing that travel great distances via the air and the ground. These wavelengths, referred to as infrasound, have the ability to gently vibrate in the chest, change pressure inside the ear, and rattle windows. Although the body perceives them as a slight tremor that causes fear or wonder, humans are unable to consciously hear them. Infrasound recordings from adjacent surf or wind tunnels correlate with several accounts of haunting coastal locations or enigmatic hums near cliffs. The impression of presence, or the sense that something invisible is moving close by, is produced by the physical sensation of vibration without any discernible cause. Researchers have replicated such outcomes in lab settings where low-frequency speakers generate feelings of melancholy, shivers, or awe. Through its never-ending pulse, the ocean shapes emotion with waves that never break against the coast of sound, whispering to us beneath the surface of awareness. Birds that migrate take advantage of the Earth's magnetic field, which can fluctuate wildly. Many migratory birds have a chemical called cryptochrome inside their cells that responds to the magnetic field of the planet. Because of this response, the birds are able to use patterns that are invisible to the human eye to travel great distances. However, Earth's magnetic field fluctuates. Local fields can be distorted by geological formations, solar storms, and minute changes in the core. Flocks may suddenly appear where they do not belong or circle in confusion as a result of that. Such large-scale motions were seen by early observers as signs from the gods, ghosts in the sky, or omens of calamity. According to contemporary research, these are the byproducts of a sophisticated navigation system operating close to its limits. These invisible maps show us how much life depends on factors beyond our control by guiding organisms across oceans and through the dark. It appears like the sky is filled with invisible roadways that are written in flight and magnetism. Spores released by some fungi can cause brief hallucinations. Certain mold and fungus species release chemicals into the air that have an impact on the human nervous system in damp forests and old cellars. Visual shimmer, a sense of being watched, and mild disorientation can all be symptoms of spores that contain volatile compounds or alkaloids. These natural toxins can cause symptoms that are exactly the same as those described in historical reports of haunted houses. In one well-documented instance, it was discovered that a farmhouse experiencing haunting visions had large growths of a hallucinogenic fungus behind the wallpaper. The experiences stopped after it was removed. The finding demonstrated how invisible life may influence perception without malice or purpose, bridging the gap between biology and folklore. Nevertheless, the concept itself is still eerie. For a brief while, the same ancient creatures that break down fallen wood and support forests can also distort human reality by serving as a reminder that every breath contains both chemistry and mystery. Numerous beliefs about ghosts have been influenced by bioluminescent species. Pale lights would occasionally drift across the night for people passing through marshes or woodlands long before electricity. These lights were produced by insects whose bodies convert chemical energy into frigid brilliance, and by colonies of illuminating fungi that feed on rotting wood. Observers unfamiliar with bioluminescence found the pulsing glow of beetles or the continuous shimmer of foxfire to be unearthly. Stories of fairies, ancestral spirits, and wandering souls were sparked by these living lamps. According to recent studies, the light is caused by a chemical called luciferin, reacting with oxygen in a process so effective that nearly no energy is wasted as heat. However, this knowledge does not take away from the wonder. As a reminder that nature enjoys spectacle, bioluminescence continues to appear as a message written in light. Even deterioration has its own little constellation, and the forests that once scared travelers are now places of delicate miracles. Dancing orbs can be produced when swamp gas spontaneously ignites. Decomposing vegetation in bogs and wetlands releases phosphine and methane into the atmosphere. The smallest spark can ignite these gases when they combine with oxygen, creating flickering green or blue flames that float above the surface. The flames glide slowly through mist before fading, following invisible currents of warm air, giving the impression that the movement is intentional. For generations, people believed that these spectral fires were either guides to the underworld or wandering ghosts. Names like ignis fatuus, which means foolish fire, were inspired by this phenomenon. The visual poetry endures even if scientists now comprehend the chemistry. There is still a subtle glimmer in a marsh at night when decay and life coexist. Evidence that energy changes rather than actually vanishes. Nature's silent celebration of rebirth is represented by the dancing orbs that were traditionally regarded as omens, light that comes from the earth's own breath. Some fairy rings are flawless circles formed by millennia of fungal growth, circular patches of mushrooms, which define the outside boundary of an underground network that radiates outward from a single origin, arise seasonally in meadows throughout Europe and beyond. The mycelium produces a nearly flawless ring that can grow to a diameter of several meters every year as it pushes deeper into unexplored soil and uses up nutrients at its core. According to folklore, these circles were either borders that should never be passed, portals to another realm, or the footsteps of dancing ghosts. A far older and more nuanced story is revealed by contemporary ecology. The subsurface organism has a centuries-long lifespan, sustaining plant life above and recycling nutrients in a quiet manner. The ring is a memory as well as a map, using slow geometry to trace time. Standing on its edge, one can sense how nature's accuracy is sometimes confused with enchantment, only to discover that the two are frequently the same thing expressed in different languages of awe. Chemical reactions in marshes are probably where the wisp legends got their start. Flickering lights that fled when approached and disappeared when pursued were described by travelers in low marshes throughout history. In actuality, these glowing apparitions could be caused by tiny methane pockets that ignite when phosphine or diphosphane released by decomposing organic matter oxidizes. Faint bluish glows that float just above the earth are produced by the chemical. In order to verify that spontaneous igniting might in fact create moving orbs, early naturalists attempted to reproduce the phenomenon using caught marsh vapors. The location itself feels alive. Therefore, the mythology endures despite the explanation. A fuel-less flame dancing through fog appeals to the imagination. The boundary between science and folklore blurs in the silence of a swamp, where every step unleashes the breath of buried flora. The same reactions that provide soil with fresh carbon also produce brief poetry of light, transforming death into a transient act of renewal. Predictions from psychics frequently match probability more accurately than chance. Researchers frequently discover an intriguing trend when they look at big databases of recorded predictions. Some predictions match statistical likelihoods marginally more frequently than would be expected from pure chance. For instance, it appears straightforward to anticipate that rain will fall during a wet season, or that a coin would land heads half the time. However, some intuitive guesses seem to be sensitive to environmental cues. Analysts contend that the effect might be explained by unconscious pattern recognition rather than supernatural force. Unaware of it, humans are continuously processing background information, incorporating tone, context, and habit into expectations. Prophecies could be the result of a mind at its best. The distinction between precognition and intuition is still unclear, though, and merits further investigation. The question of how much the body knows before cognition catches up, and whether the brain's silent calculations are the source of what we term foresight, arises with every accurate realization. Subtle clues are used in cold reading to give the appearance of telepathy. Performers who seem to read minds frequently use a method known as cold reading, which blends psychology, observation, and generalizations that are tailored to match the lives of many people. A good reader can deduce age, temperament, or recent experience by closely observing posture, attire, and facial expressions. They start with generalizations that seem subjective, then hone their assertions in response to the subject's responses. Accuracy increases with each affirmation until the audience senses a real connection. The method shows how much empathy may mimic magic and how much people want to be understood. Cold reading turns into a study of trust and communication when done appropriately. It illustrates how faith can triumph over skepticism when it is applied dishonestly. The lesson is curiosity about the incredible sensitivity of perception rather than cynicism or contempt. When applied to truth, the same abilities that produce illusion can also impart compassion. The belief in fortune-telling is strengthened by the fact that people tend to forget misses and recall hits. Confirmation bias exists in the human brain. We vividly document when a forecast fails and when it succeeds. We ignore it or forget about it. The belief that a psychic or seer has insight is strengthened by this erratic bookkeeping. Probability and memory studies reveal that even arbitrary estimates seem correct if the accomplishments are emotionally memorable. The mind magnifies facts to support a need for guidance that is stronger. This process explains why hazy horoscopes feel intimate and why even contradicting predictions about one's health or love feel significant. People are not made stupid by the pattern. They become human because of it. The two oldest currencies of survival, fear and hope, are used by memory to filter reality. This makes faith in fortune-telling less superstitious and more a reflection of our intense need for purpose amid the chaos of chance. Experiments with card guessing once revealed slight departures from chance. Early in the 20th century, researchers tested extrasensory perception using decks imprinted with basic symbols. When participants were away from the experimenter, they tried to identify hidden cards. Some people scored somewhat higher than the statistical forecast across thousands of trials. Subsequent investigation exposed methodological shortcomings such as non-random shuffling, pattern recognition, and subtle hints. However, the findings spurred decades of research. The numbers were fascinating, but so was the potential for consciousness to transcend sensory channels. Similar investigations are still conducted today under more stringent conditions, occasionally yielding anomalies that neither support nor refute the theory. Curiosity itself is the timeless lesson. Testing the unlikely is how science develops, and every cautious failure helps us understand things better. The hunt serves as a reminder that unanswered questions continue to push the boundaries of knowledge, regardless of whether anyone will ever be able to see beyond sight. There is still opportunity for philosophical discussion regarding free will in the context of quantum randomness. Particles exhibit unpredictable behavior at the smallest sizes. According to quantum mechanics, results are probabilities rather than absolutes, indicating that distributions, not set roots, govern how events transpire. Some philosophers believe that human choice may arise from indeterminacy rather than rigid causation in this unpredictable environment, which could serve as a haven for free will. Randomness, according to others, is not freedom. It's just purposeless unpredictability. However, the relationship between quantum theory and consciousness still sparks debate because of what it exposes about reality itself, not because it proves mysticism. The universe seems to be both organized and flexible, lawful and unpredictable. This dichotomy reflects the state of humanity. We envision choices while adhering to rules. The puzzle remains, allowing one to consider the extent to which physics and mind may be intertwined, regardless of whether judgment is based on particles, patterns, or perception. While hypnosis can increase concentration, it cannot reveal latent abilities. While under hypnosis, the mind remains conscious but becomes extremely receptive to suggestions. This state is more akin to profound relaxation than oblivion. According to studies, hypnosis can enhance focus, lessen anxiety, and lessen discomfort, but it cannot create new talents. Simply being hypnotized does not allow people to lift items, read minds, or remember past lifetimes. By focusing attention and eliminating distractions, the approach allows imagination and sensory experience to coexist. Because the subject's expectations influence the induction, professional hypnotists take the effort to establish clarity and trust. The discoveries, which show how malleable the brain can be, are remarkable but commonplace. Hypnosis serves as a reminder that perception is significantly altered by belief and focus. The silent flexibility of consciousness, which may rewrite its own script for healing or tranquility, is what is magical, not secret powers. Synesthesia, or extrasensory perception, is a real phenomenon for certain people. Some people experience odd crossings of their sensory pathways. A name may taste like smoke or citrus, a number may have a texture, or a sound may evoke a color. Synesthesia, the term for this blending, is stable circuitry connecting disparate brain regions rather than imagination. The world has extra levels of significance for the individual who lives with it, as though reality itself communicates in code. Because the correlations were too strong to explain, early reports of such experiences were occasionally confused with psychic abilities. Current neuroscience uses imaging to map the phenomena, showing that the auditory, visual, and emotional centers are all simultaneously activated. It is supersensory, a depth of how elastic perception can be, rather than supernatural. The everyday becomes poetic through synesthesia, demonstrating that the distinctions between sensations are not as sharp as we formerly thought. The human brain is so good at predicting patterns that it can clearly picture what will happen in the future. The brain constantly builds models from prior experiences and small inputs to predict what will happen next. We can finish a sentence, grab a ball, or dodge danger before it materializes because of this ongoing predicting. Sometimes these forecasts feel like premonitions because they match reality so well. This system, which shortens time by milliseconds or even seconds, is known to neuroscientists as anticipatory processing. It can create the illusion of foresight when paired with memory's propensity to rewrite things after the fact. Knowing something before it happens, however, is nevertheless a potent and transforming experience. In its quest for order, the mind sometimes reaches into the future and touches on truth. Sometimes, what we refer to as prophecy may actually be perception that is a little ahead of the present. Evidence that awareness is a reaching hand toward the future rather than a static state. From believing alone, the placebo effect can produce actual physical changes. The brain releases chemicals that simulate the effects of real medication when the person expects relief. Dopamine improves happiness, endorphins lessen pain, and immunological responses get stronger. In controlled research, Theos has reduced blood pressure, alleviated depression, and healed ulcers. The phenomenon does not imply that the disease was fictitious. It implies that the body's internal pharmacy can be triggered by belief. In several trials, patients who were told they were getting a placebo nonetheless showed improvement, proving that being aware of the mechanism's existence does not negate its effectiveness. Expectation functions as a signal that modifies physiology, demonstrating how the mind and body function as a single system. This idea is tapped into in every culture's healing practices, whether they involve prayer, ceremony, or just plain comfort. It turns out that faith is biology written in hope, serving as a reminder that trust in and of itself can be therapeutic. Self-fulfilled prophecies show how reality is shaped by expectations. Our conduct frequently changes in ways that increase the likelihood of a particular outcome when we have strong beliefs about it. A pupil who believes they will fail does not study as much. A worker who anticipates success takes a composed approach to difficulties. Subtle feedback loops of attitude, tone, and perseverance allow the prophecy to come full circle. This effect has been noted by social psychologists in relationships, the workplace, and classrooms when expectation serves as the catalyst for change. The process shows how reality and mind are intertwined. Action is guided by belief. Evidence is produced by action, and belief is reinforced by evidence. It is both narrative and scientific. A never-ending cycle that illustrates how hopefulness promotes health and hopelessness depletes it. Under these circumstances, superstition turns into a warped mirror of a true principle. Our imagination keeps gaining weight. We are reminded that every forecast is also a seed by the blurring of the boundaries between psychological and bodily consequences. Intense emotional moments can cause time perception to become distorted. The networks that monitor time start to compress and stretch perception when the mind is overloaded with adrenaline. Milliseconds enlarge in peril, making one heartbeat seem like a full second. Time might completely disappear in moments of wonder or happiness. The brain accomplishes this by changing how quickly sensory data is captured and stored. The amygdala floods memory circuits under stressful situations, retaining more information than normal and making the event appear longer. Numerous accounts of time slowing in near-death experiences, visions, and accidents have resulted from this distortion. It is not supernatural. Rather, it is the brain's survival mechanism, which allows for a longer reaction time. The feeling is still amazing, though. We touch a truth about consciousness in the memory of that moment of suspension. Clocks are simply one way to measure time. Another is the intensity of our lives. A transient malfunction in the memory system could be the source of déjà vu. When impulses from the hippocampus and temporal cortex are slightly out of sync, it might lead to déjà vu, the uncanny feeling that a moment has already been experienced. Before a new event reaches conscious awareness, it is first processed in circuits that are in charge of recognition. For a brief while, the brain confuses the present with recollection, creating a strong sense of familiarity. By physically activating these areas, Researchers can cause the effect in people with epilepsy who frequently experience déjà vu. It is proof of the intimate relationship between memory and perception in the brain map, not of previous lives or prophecies. The phenomenon demonstrates how effectively the brain interprets meaning by rapidly connecting new information to previously remembered patterns. We get a peek of the mechanism of memory as it folds onto itself when the time is off by a single second. Vu is a phenomenon in which the familiar seems oddly unfamiliar to some people. Déjà vu, or an abrupt departure from the norm, is the opposite of déjà vu. It's possible for someone to feel as though a familiar word or face has changed. When recognition circuits briefly malfunction, the mind treats the known as unfamiliar, leading to a phenomenon. Saying a word out loud repeatedly can have the same effect, depriving it of meaning until it sounds strange, according to linguists researching repetition fatigue. Shame vu emphasizes the neurological fragility of familiarity, which depends on continuous input between memory and perception. The ordinary becomes strange when that loop breaks. The world softly tilts for those who feel it, reminding us that stability is a product of ongoing brain-environment agreement. The routine displays its strangeness when that accord pauses, and even our own reflection becomes a question. A lot of the time, premonition dreams are just coincidences exacerbated by memory bias. Dreams frequently incorporate tidbits of previous experience into creative forecasts. The match feels predictive when a future event seems like a dream. However, psychology provides an alternative explanation. Some dreams will coincide by accident with later reality because of the brain's enormous output of nighttime imagery. By preferentially remembering hits and forgetting Mrs. Barr, memory bias reinforces the illusion. Following a startling event, the mind reassembles pieces to create a cohesive story by searching through its archives for anything that fits. According to research on dream journals, apparent prophecies happen no more frequently than chance when all records are taken into account. However, because it fulfills the brain's deep-seated need for pattern identification, the experience feels meaningful. Dreams serve as a reassuring reminder that the subconscious is constantly practicing what the future may hold, reflecting our lives so well that chance feels like design. The human brain is capable of incredibly detailed simulations of future events. Imagination is an active prediction engine rather than a passive gift. The same parts of our brains that handle memory light up to project the future when we imagine what will happen tomorrow. Humans are able to plan, hope, and worry because of this ability. Neuroimaging demonstrates how the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex work together to piece together sensory data to create scenes that have never happened. It might be so vivid that imagined occurrences have the same emotional impact as actual recollections. This process explains why worry can feel like a lived experience and why practicing an action enhances performance. As a survival drill, the brain continuously simulates scenarios to test potential outcomes. This biological ability gives rise to intuition, foresight, and prophecy. The mind's earliest art is what was originally referred to as vision, transforming the mind into a lab where time is malleable and the future momentarily becomes real. Some epileptics claim to be aware of things just before they happen. Before a seizure, some types of temporal lobe epilepsy cause a brief aura that is characterized by increased awareness, emotion, or clarity. People occasionally claim to have sensed things during this time, right before they happened. According to science, this is caused by an odd synchronization between the emotional and sensory areas as electrical activity increases. The illusion of precognition is produced by the brain's hypervigilant and misfiring ability to anticipate incoming stimuli milliseconds in advance. However, the sense of revelation is real and is referred to as cosmic or sacred. Throughout history, such crises have sparked both creative breakthroughs and religious revelations. Because both disease and inspiration entail the brain's ability to expand perception, they are difficult to distinguish from one another. These instances demonstrate how experience is defined by precise timing and how a neuronal storm may give the seemingly ordinary an incalculable sense of meaning. Subconscious motion sensing may be the source of the sense of being watched. Humans have a keen feeling of when another creature is focusing on them because they developed as both predators and prey. According to studies, our peripheral vision can pick up on minute changes in concentration, posture, or light, even when we are not able to see someone. These small cues trigger a response from the amygdala, which makes the body more attentive. By foreseeing potential social or physical threats, this mechanism keeps us safe. But it might backfire when left alone. The same old circuit may be triggered by the angle of a picture frame, the twitch of a shadow, or a whisper of movement. The cold that runs down your spine is unearthly. Our oldest intuition is stirring, nevertheless. A biological echo of alertness. The feeling of being watched is evidence that the body's wisdom frequently comes before awareness, and that instinct continues to pay attention even while the eyes are blind. Meaningful patterns can be created by the mind by connecting seemingly unrelated occurrences. One of the brain's most powerful features and most alluring traps is pattern recognition. In order to make meaning of the world, we connect the seemingly random, from constellations to coincidences. Apophenia is a tendency that originates from the same brain networks that govern learning and creativity. It enables us to decipher language, facial expressions, and cause and consequence. However, it also breeds conspiracy and superstition. Dopamine spikes reward the sense of discovery when unrelated occurrences coincide by coincidence, strengthening the pattern, even if it is untrue. A world full of perceived intention is the end consequence. While some perceive hidden systems, others divine messages. The same neural root gives rise to both. The mind turns chaos into story and story into meaning through the creation of patterns. It is the creative pulse of consciousness itself, not a defect or a miracle. Tiny occurrences are essentially unexpected due to quantum physics. Nature, at the subatomic level, rejects certainty. Particles can exist in a variety of possible states until their probabilities are collapsed into a single outcome by observation. This randomness is a natural aspect of reality, not a sign of stupidity. It is impossible to predict what will happen next, even with full information. This uncertainty is confirmed by experiments using electron spin, photon polarization, and radioactive decay. This line between knowing and not knowing seems mysterious to the human imagination. Both physicists and philosophers have questioned whether consciousness influences which possibility materializes. Even if the evidence points to mathematics rather than mysticism, everything is still the same. Both law and chance govern the cosmos, and creativity itself is contained in that interaction. From atomic uncertainty come thought, life, and galaxies. Perhaps everything that can ever surprise us comes from randomness rather than chaos. In nature, true randomness is uncommon and frequently confused with fate. The majority of seemingly random events have hidden patterns. Dice follow physics, raindrops follow air currents, and even mutations take place within statistical limitations. Only at quantum scales, when probabilities take the place of cause and effect, is perfect unpredictability possible. However, coincidence seems intentional to the human eye. A music playing during a time of pain, or the birth of two pals on the same day, appears too exact to be coincidence. This tendency to interpret randomness through narrative is known to psychologists as the narrative bias. By transforming chaos into pattern, fate, or destiny, this bias gives us comfort. The irony is that existence is shaped by meaning, even though it is fundamentally random. Every coincidence serves as a reminder of how order and imagination work together. The mind's fundamental tendency to turn chance into connection and probability into poetry is seen in the search for meaning. Geological characteristics that intensify electromagnetic fields are shared by certain haunting places. Unusual mineral deposits or geological features are frequently found beneath well-known haunted locales. Weak electrical currents can be stored and conducted by quartz, limestone, and basalt. Local magnetic fluctuations are further enhanced by subterranean water or soil that is rich in iron. When sensitive people visit certain locations, they may experience tingling, confusion, or a sense of presence. Instruments verify erratic electromagnetic activity that could affect the temporal lobes, which are areas of the brain linked to perception and emotion. Legends of restless ghosts may be explained by these natural circumstances. The distinction between inner and outward perception becomes hazy when the surroundings themselves hum. The planet might be using science to communicate what appears to be supernatural. Mystery is not diminished by the discovery. It moves it into a more profound register, reminding us that the mind and nature are intertwined through invisible yet potent fields that can influence what we perceive as haunting. Water sources beneath structures can affect temperature and vibration. Both electrical and kinetic energy are carried by flowing water. Streams that flow beneath buildings may result in minute temperature changes and vibrations that compromise comfort and acoustics. Sensitive people may perceive these changes as presence or discomfort. Humidity and acoustic resonance can amplify the effect in older buildings without modern insulation, creating eerie, chilly spots or faint whispers. According to research on environmental psychology, these differences might affect mood and focus, giving the impression that someone is watching or following you. But it's a perfectly natural explanation. The silent physics of water flowing through stone and air. Stories of hidden spirits were originally sparked by the same underground currents that chill rooms and reverberate through pipes. The sound of the river whispering beneath our feet serves as a constant reminder that the ground is alive and constantly changing, influencing both the atmosphere and our imagination. When some rocks are crushed or fractured, they release a faint glow. When struck or under stress, several minerals, including fluorite, quartz, and calcite, emit light bursts. Triboluminescence is a phenomenon that happens when crystal formations break and electrons in the air recombine with gas molecules. It's a miraculous effect to the inexperienced eye. Without fire or spark, light is generated from stone. Miners deep underground and cave explorers once described glowing rocks that pulsed as though they were living things. Later, scientists discovered that this straightforward yet exquisite technique could directly convert mechanical energy into light. Despite being aware of the reason, the sight nevertheless amazes. Though the physical world conceals beauty inside its structure, only waiting for the slightest touch to unveil it, the brightness of broken crystals serves as a reminder. Potential brightness, a silent echo of the energies that form the stars, can be found in every fragment. Metal things can shine like magical torches when St. Elmo's fire is present. Strong electric fields can ionize the air surrounding pointed objects, like church spires or ship masts, during thunderstorms, producing a bluish flame. In the past, Sailors thought that this spectral glow was a guardian spirit that would keep them safe from harm. It is actually plasma generated. Light can dance and flicker as charged particles excite atmospheric molecules, adhering to metal like live fire, but remaining cold to the touch. One of nature's most eerie sights, the phenomena was named for the patron saint of sailors, Saint Erasmus. Even with complete scientific knowledge, there is still a sense of blessing associated with witnessing St. Elmo's fire. It proves that knowledge does not extinguish wonder, but rather gives it a more steady glow by transforming terror into beauty and energy into adoration. In the dark, granite radiation can produce odd lights. Traces of radioactive materials like uranium and thorium are frequently found in granite and other igneous rocks. These elements' disintegration releases energy that can excite adjacent atoms, sometimes causing air to ionize or glow faintly. The glow may manifest as faint flashes or hazy halos in totally dark settings, which could be misconstrued for paranormal activity. The natural, age-old, and consistent nature of these emissions is confirmed by sensitive photographic plates and detectors. The stones beneath our feet are animated by the same decomposition heat that drives the Earth's core. According to current science, glowing rocks represented ghosts within the mountain to early observers. Matter and time are having a silent discussion. Even the most solid objects are gradually changing, releasing hints of light that have journeyed over millions of years to reach the current night, as the shine of granite serves as a reminder. Soil can get magnetized by lightning strikes, leaving behind luminous leftovers. Temperatures rise above the sun's surface when a lightning strike strikes the earth. In that moment, minerals and sand combine to form glassy tubes called fulgurites. As trapped electrons gradually recombine, the energy can also magnetize nearby soil and produce subtle luminous after-effects. For ages, people thought that the Earth had been touched by celestial fire when they discovered glowing ground following storms. The glow is caused by ionized gases and minerals that are still releasing stored energy, according to modern sensors. Chaos is transformed into elegant glass sculptures through a violent and delicate process. Every fulgurite captures a moment in time as stone meets the sky, a remnant of natural strength so great that it appears divine. The perception persists even after analysis. Lightning signs each storm with light, writing its own language on the sand. Sites with exceptional natural energy were frequently used for the construction of ancient structures. Numerous historic temples and monuments are situated on sites that align with subsurface waterways, geological fault lines, or magnetite and quartz deposits. These regions exhibit faint seismic or electromagnetic activity, according to recent data. It's possible that ancient builders selected these locations for pragmatic reasons, such as firm ground or readily available materials, or maybe because they sensed something unique. Feelings of awe and reverence are evoked by standing stones that hum softly in the wind or by caverns that vibrate with low frequencies. Myths about gates between planets or sacred energies were probably influenced by these phenomena. The physics underlying them is now understood by science. However, the early architects' intuition is still remarkable. They translated vibration and resonance into architecture by constructing where the earth spoke most plainly. As a result, many sacred locations continue to feel alive, containing the planet's silent pulse within their stones. Lights from earthquakes have been confused with supernatural phenomena. Witnesses occasionally claim to see flashes, orbs, or sheets of light in the sky before and during seismic activity. Stress in rocks transfers electrical energy into the environment, which is what causes these earthquake lights. from small blue flickers to dazzling white bursts that persist for many seconds. The glow can vary in intensity. They were originally thought to be ghosts escaping the Earth or heavenly warnings, and they were recorded for centuries. Geologists have just recently been able to photograph them and link them to fault activity. According to physics, charged particles ionize the air above as they go along fractures. The phenomenon is uncommon, but it demonstrates that the planet's crust can act as a massive battery. Its awe is not diminished by knowing this. When the Earth lightens from stress, geology is momentarily transformed into fire, a reminder that even in chaos there is beauty in the living world. At night, humans may be surrounded by hazy halos produced by volcanic gases. In volcanic areas, light from lamps or the moon can be scattered by invisible emissions of sulfur and water vapor, creating faint coronas that move with the moon. In the past, travelers thought that light figures passing through mist near volcanic vents were spirits. In actuality, the illusion results from tiny droplets deflecting light, which is similar to how halos surround the sun. Additionally, when heated, the gases may ionize slightly, enhancing the glow. When paired with the deep roar of the earth below, such sights continue to be eerie. They serve as a reminder that the environment shapes our perspective and that nature itself creates illusions that are more spectacular than any theater. The next time a halo appears in volcanic fog, it can be seen as Earth's slow exhalation, transforming light and chemistry into silent, poignant art, rather than as eerie. Ancient fire ghost legends might have been influenced by atmospheric plasma outbursts. Ball lightning and plasma orbs are rare illuminating phenomena that happen during storms when charged particles create stable spheres of incandescent air. These spheres have the ability to travel through gaps, float soundlessly, and disappear with a gentle pop or light. According to current science, they are caused by electromagnetic fields or silicon vapor holding onto ionized plasma for a few seconds. They were interpreted as omens, fire spirits, or gods by ancient observers. The same scene is the source of legends about sky lanterns and roaming flames. Even with modern tools and formulas, the incidents are still hard to reproduce, straddling the line between science and myth. In a single instant, each appearance combines weather, vitality, and imagination. Scientists are fascinated by the flames that previously terrified travelers, demonstrating that the stories of light were never false. Only preliminary accounts of the same amazement that we continue to seek with tools rather than with prayer. Spirits of the dead are said to protect certain areas in many cultures. Oral histories include ancestors who stay close to specific cliffs, springs, or groves to keep watch over the living in deserts, along coasts, in woods, and in mountains. Because people harvest carefully, prevent waste, and leave offerings that also act as nutrient return to the soil when they believe elders are watching over a valley, anthropologists find a complex ecological ethic in these stories. Another layer is added by psychology, which suggests that memories and grief leave heightened feelings in certain locations. In this way, a river that has been fished with a parent or a ridge that has been traversed with a grandmother bears a constant weight of presence. Sometimes geology also plays a part, either through minerals that gently affect mood and compasses or acoustics that carry voices farther than anticipated. Regardless of the explanation, culture, mind, or rock, the encounter yields tangible results. Sacred hills are still covered in trees. Springs remain pristine. Nesting grounds are circumvented by pathways. Remembrance becomes a living contract with the land when what starts as reverence turns into practical conservation. When there is collective stress and suggestibility, shared hallucinations happen. Whole audiences have reportedly seen lights in the sky, heard phantom bells, or felt a figure gliding across a battlefield, according to compelling historical reports. The brain becomes extremely sensitive to social cues while under stress or terror. The group as a whole starts filtering perception via the same expectation when one individual gasps and points, locking attention onto ambiguous inputs. This transient matching of interpretation and focus is known in neuroscience as entrainment. Loud noises, hunger, and uncertainty increase in low visibility until the imagination provides the necessary details. The result is not stupidity. It's a survival tactic that used to enable communities to react swiftly to dangers. Coordinated breathing, chanting, or marching further increases agreement on what is seen or heard, according to recent research. Under those circumstances, an echo turns into a voice, and a flash becomes a figure. The coordination is genuine, bringing people together when they most need it, even though the vision may not be. Rituals can improve unity by synchronizing participants' brainwaves. According to electroencephalogram research, electrical patterns across distinct skulls start to line up when people sing, sway, or breathe rhythmically. Reports of intimacy and trust are correlated with this interbrain coherence, which is most pronounced in bands linked to empathy and attentiveness. Physiology now validates the long-held suspicion of anthropologists that rites functioned as a means of fostering cohesion. As the heart and breathing settle into regular rhythms, the synchrony spreads throughout the body, reducing stress and enhancing group attention. Conflicts become less heated, and generosity increases in that common rhythm. Decisions can be made in a village without conflict. Words cannot express a congregation's joy or sorrow. Supernatural agency is not necessary for any of this to feel remarkable. It is remarkable because it demonstrates how minds are wired to connect. To tune disparate lives into one instrument, at least for a bright hour, all you need is a circle, a drum, a chant, and a purpose. Brain states and heart rhythms are altered by chanting and drumming. By activating the vagus pathway, which controls breathing, heart rate, and digestion, repetition helps the nervous system become more relaxed. The prefrontal areas that monitor time and self start to loosen up as syllables and beats continue, letting larger networks take over. People report experiencing a widening of focus that feels like a gentle tide tingling along the scalp and warmth behind the chest. Measurements reveal tiny releases of mood-enhancing endorphins together with increases in slow brain rhythms associated with calm. Because the body is consistent, the approach is consistent throughout firesides and monasteries. Rhythm joins heart, breath meets rhythm, and awareness becomes stable. Tradition adds meaning by establishing purpose and expectation, which intensifies the effect. The cycle holds the same promise whether the words are simple or sacred. Like a hand extended in the dark, a steady pattern can grasp a restless mind until it becomes still again. Sacred sites are frequently found where sound reverberates in peculiar ways. Canyons cut to exact angles, holes with convergent walls, and caves with domed ceilings can transform a whisper into a chorus. It was observed by early builders that certain rooms responded to songs with a persistent story that gave the impression that the voices were older and larger than their owners. Those locations evolved into sanctuaries and altars. Contemporary opticians are able to trace the reflections and pinpoint the ringing frequencies. However, the astonishment is not diminished by knowing the diagram. In the proper chamber, a single tone grows into a throbbing presence that pushes emotion forward by vibrating the spine and ribs. The senses concur that something enormous is close when incense, torchlight, and carved stone are added. The evidence of adoration is sound, not stillness, because sight affects the ritual and the ceremony shapes memory. The echo and the awe are restored by the very act of crossing the threshold generations later. Neurological conditions have been connected to certain possession incidents. It's common to interpret sudden changes in voice, convulsions, visions, and personality as a spirit taking possession. Temporal lobe epilepsy, autoimmune encephalitis, dissociative disorders, or exposure to toxins are occasionally discovered during clinical investigation. Both can result in powerful experiences that the victim perceives as being outside of themselves. In order to make sense of such upheavals, cultures without access to medical resources employed possession as a framework. This framework included community, ritual, and attention, all of which are healing factors in and of themselves. Supportive rites can lessen stigma and anxiety even in modern times when medicine treats the underlying reason. The important realization is that the brain may produce overwhelming situations that beg for meaning, not that mystery is unreal. Results improve when tradition and treatment work together. When physiology is respected, harm is avoided. Dignity is restored when the story is respected. A person lost in a storm can make their way back to shore by using either of the two options. Physical symptoms such as fever and tremors might result from religious ecstasy. The sympathetic nervous system, which primes the body for important events, is triggered by intense devotion. Adrenaline and endorphins work together to change blood flow, deepen breathing, and cause muscles to shake. By giving the physiology a purpose, practitioners' interpretations of these experiences as sacred fire or an indwelling spirit enhance it. Following the crest, there is a parasympathetic settling that frequently results in long-lasting calm, occasionally accompanied by laughter or tears. Anthropologists discover comparable arcs in contemplative prayer, call and response, whirling and prostration. The curve is there, but the forms are different. The measurements demonstrate that devotion is embodied rather than undermining faith. Tissue and nerve respond with testimony and release when belief speaks to them eloquently. As though the body had been waiting to be included in the prayer all along. What starts out as longing ends up as integration. Because belief is so strong, placebo exorcisms can occasionally be effective. The mind might flip from alarm to safety when a trusted person announces that a load is being lifted. This change modifies hormone levels, calms threat circuits, and relaxes attack-ready muscles. Even in cases where the etiology is psychological rather than pretonal, the relief is genuine. The ritual is not diminished by this. It emphasizes the power of narrative, community, and expectation. Because the nervous system reacts to permission to let go, every society keeps up rituals for purification and release. There are several medical analogues, such as sweet tablets that reduce pain or welcoming waiting areas that lower blood pressure. Medicine has meaning. A chapter that biology alone left open can be closed by a rite that unites family, signifies an intention, and designates an ending. Accordingly, a blessing is a course of treatment that is written in the heart's language. Real behavior and even local ecosystems can be influenced by collective beliefs. Decisions about what to preserve, where to create, and how to commemorate are guided by shared conviction. Axes avoid groves where guardians are present. Streams that are considered sacred have well-maintained walkways and are never littered. These choices shape terraces, preserve soils, and maintain pure streams over decades, making geology in slow motion. As pilgrims journey, craftspeople labor, and marketplaces expand during feast days, economies follow beliefs. As rumors move crowds or restrict roads, fear can also influence outcomes, demonstrating that imagination can change traffic just as effectively as barriers. It's not an illusion. Cause and effect are involved. The policy ripens the landscape outside the mind, and stories compose the policy inside the mind. The message is both optimistic and sobering. The land itself benefits when communities select stories that celebrate life. The harm is just as real when they select stories of mistrust. Psychoactive herbs may have been employed in religious ceremonies by ancient cultures. Pollen in graveyards, residues on cups, and artwork showing cacti, mushrooms, and vines with radiating halos have all been discovered by archaeologists. Pharmacology finds substances in these plants that activate serotonin pathways, enhancing visual acuity and emotional receptivity. Such chemistry can spark lifelong experiences of forgiveness, unification, or revelation in carefully managed environments. In order to set intentions and deliver songs that stabilize the voyage, elders served as guides. The knowledge was gained via integration rather than flight, bringing lessons back to support families, heal divisions, and select leaders with humility. Following in the footsteps of techniques that date back many centuries, modern clinicians follow rigorous protocols to investigate comparable chemicals for depression and trauma. It's easy to see the through line. People look for tools that teach patience, open the heart, and remind them that there is a huge meadow full of significance that can grow inside their minds. Phantom pain implies that the mind is capable of seeing non-existent limbs. Following amputation, a person may have pains in a missing calf, a clenched fist, or itchy toes. The brain continues to anticipate input and retains a thorough map of the absent area. The brain interprets mixed signals as sensation from the absent area when nearby zones encroach on the silent area. By balancing anticipation with the new reality, mirror treatment reduces pain by persuading perception that movement is possible. The same idea is expanded upon with even more immersion in virtual settings. An important lesson about presence can be learned from the phenomenon. Memory and prediction are as much a part of the self as physical flesh. Representation is not immediately erased by loss. The body recalls itself in learned sensation and needs to be carefully taught its new form. Time, imagination, and compassion repaint the map. Inner voices and intuition are produced by the brain's default mode network. A constellation of areas becomes active when we are not working on a task and are at rest, weaving imaginary conversations, daydreams, and personal narratives. This network creates a storytelling engine that revisits the past and models the future by connecting the temporal, posterior cingulate, and medial prefrontal cortex. Because they come unexpectedly and with emotional weight, the thoughts that arise can feel like external counsel. This mechanism is calmed by meditation, which is why quiet can seem clear and serene. It is frequently stimulated by creativity, which is why a walk can resolve an issue that obstinate effort was unable to. Memory meets prediction to produce the private commentary that some refer to as intuition. It becomes a useful friend rather than a dictator, a kind guide molded by everything we have experienced when we regard it with inquiry rather than mindless obedience. The same parts of the brain are activated by vivid imagination as by real sensory information. According to functional imaging, the visual cortex is activated when one imagines a color, the auditory cortex is activated when one imagines music, and motor regions are activated when one imagines motion. This reusing of pathways explains why anxious thoughts can speed up breathing and pulse without any actual risk, and why athletes develop via mental repetition. It also clarifies why memories might stray as imagined scenes blend with actual events. When used purposefully, the overlap is a gift. Before they paint, artists are able to see. Before they perform, musicians are able to hear. Before creating a single instrument, Scientists can test concepts in the theater of the mind. Insight is made possible by the same structure that permits illusion. A passive camera is not what the brain is. At their best, a projector and screen-running simulations get us ready to face reality with grace and expertise. It is normal and consoling to feel present during grieving. Mourners frequently describe hearing footsteps, feeling a loved one close by, or feeling a warmth that is specific to the deceased. These are benign bereavement experiences that assist attachment systems to relax gradually rather than abruptly, according to clinicians. Years of intimacy have shaped neural circuits that still activate, creating feelings of connection that soften the edges of sadness. As new routines establish themselves, the events gradually become less frequent. However, many maintain a soft relic, a silent camaraderie that emerges on anniversaries or in familiar settings. Delusion is not what this is. It is love completing its task, changing shape without losing its significance. Because their ideals, humor, and sensitivity are still ingrained in the living, the deceased actually continue to influence decisions. The shape of the weave is the lingering presence, felt like a nighttime hand on the shoulder. Sometimes lucid dreamers have the ability to manipulate their dreams. The dreamer might choose how to investigate the seam after realizing that it is created by the mind when awareness awakens during rapid eye movement sleep. Research indicates heightened activity in areas that facilitate metacognition, which makes choices made in dreams seem intentional. In order to improve recollection, practitioners practice by keeping thorough records and conducting reality checks throughout the day. Users can practice challenging dialogues or turn recurrent nightmares into more benign stories. Because the nervous system learns a new reaction pattern, therapists find that confronting a fear in a safe dreamscape helps lessen anxiety during the day. Wonder is beyond utility. The ability of consciousness to paint and enter its own painting is demonstrated by flying across a fictitious sea or entering a dawn that emanates from inside. A reminder that when curiosity takes the lead, boundaries become less rigid. Some people have completely real-feeling sleep hallucinations. While muscle tone is still suppressed, sensory systems may activate at the edges of sleep, creating realistic sounds, figures, or sensations that cover the bedroom. The impact is particularly prevalent following sleep on one's back, erratic sleep patterns, or high levels of stress. Fear is often lessened when one is aware of the mechanism. A projection is the guest. An artifact of breathing against motionless muscles is the pressure on the chest. The sounds of footsteps are a combination of household noises and the auditory cortex's quest for patterns. Frequency is decreased by gentle routines that enhance rest, and basic strategies like toe wriggling can ruin the occasion. The encounter demonstrates how flimsy the boundary between perception and imagination is. In order to prevent us from acting out our dreams at the expense of infrequent but memorable world crossings, it also demonstrates how elegantly the body attempts to defend itself by locking motion during dreams. Deep spiritual experiences can be evoked by sensory deprivation. The brain intensifies its own rhythms amid silence and darkness, allowing inner discourse to become a guiding voice and interior visuals to transform into landscapes. The similar trend can be seen in modern tanks, caves, and cells. An hour later, behind closed eyes, light emerges. A sense of immensity eventually emerges, as though limits had vanished. Meditation is echoed by chemistry as stress hormones decrease and endorphins increase. Some find the realization to be intimate, a compassionately reframed recollection. Others find it philosophical, believing that the world and oneself are interconnected. Setting is crucial. Intention and safety transform isolation into a haven. Isolation without them merely weakens the psyche. Silence becomes giving with them. An instructor who teaches humility, patience, and the basic joy of being. The frequency of random coincidences is higher than intuition would suggest. Human intuition is not suited to the enormous volume of events that occur in daily life. Rather, it is suited for small groups and brief time frames. Rare alignments are certain to happen somewhere every hour since there are so many moving pieces. We focus on those who make an impression on us and overlook the innumerable near misses that would have had a similarly enchanting effect. Mathematicians demonstrate how quickly probability accumulates with matching games and birthday challenges. The lesson is to not discount joy. It is to realize that there is enough joy. We might welcome each overlap as a polite nod from a busy cosmos, a reminder that patterns abound and that attention itself is a brush that adds meaning wherever it lies, rather than demanding that every overlap bear a secret order. To avoid disorder, the human mind automatically fills in the blanks in reality. Perception is a combination of feeling and prediction. The brain provides the most likely continuation when information is lacking, ensuring that experience stays steady. This habit keeps the world comprehensible when we glimpse a sight for just a heartbeat and eliminates dizziness when we move our gaze. Because false alarms are safer than misses, the same habit might produce faces in smoke or footprints in wind when one is afraid or exhausted. This characteristic explains why forests seem more crowded at sunset and why scary houses get busier in low light. Gentleness is invited when the mechanism is understood. We can give the mind credit for attempting to protect us before taking another look and allowing more information to enter. Clarity is only a sophisticated dance the brain does all day long, updating predictions based on fresh information. In the end, the paranormal might serve as a mirror reflecting the way meaning is constructed by the mind. Mysteries frequently resolve into natural processes that are equally lovely for being understood throughout the lengthy dialogue between science and narrative. After every explanation, our inclination to interpret, connect facts with meaning, and transform anxiety into purpose is what's left. Ghosts can turn into infrasound and drafts. Omens could turn into a likelihood. However, the need for direction and company does not go away. It turns toward wonder, recollection, and community. A meaning maker is depicted in the mirror, adding symbol after symbol until life seems to be contained within a narrative. That action is not a mistake. It's a craft. It creates love, ethics, and creativity when done with integrity and consideration. Because awareness itself is a light that never stops discovering new ways to shine, the unknown remains bright, not because it conceals spirits everywhere. The secrets have settled on the mind like mist, and the night is silent now. You've wandered to the boundaries of wonder and science, where the real world disappears and the imagination takes over. The supernatural is not that remote from the material. The human desire to identify the consolation that remains after loss or the chill that permeates an empty room is to comprehend what shimmers beyond reach. Every tale of ghosts and visions, every story of light and shadow, shows the same truth hidden at the center of all inquiry. There are more questions than answers all around us, and when you pay great attention to that uncertainty, it is not frightening. It hums with life and is pleasant. In the peace of mind, the line between the seen and unseen softens. Maybe the spirits we pursue are mirror images of our own minds, or maybe ideas themselves are a sort of spirit that momentarily flits in the vast flow of time. The enigma is the same regardless of your inclination toward respect or rationality. Existence is more expansive than our vocabulary allows. Furthermore, there is always room for amazement in every explanation, no matter how thorough. Let that concept be sufficient while you sleep. The fact that questions can be cradled as tenderly as answers should reassure you. The mind is as wide as the universe, and both are full with light that we do not yet know how to identify. I encourage you to like, subscribe, or leave a comment below if you appreciate these peaceful excursions. It also makes it easier for others to find their way here, one tired soul at a time. But just take a breath for now. Let your eyes get weary and let the unknown nurture your dreams. Good night.